Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another Supatease video. It's been 1 week since the release of their most recent class changes to the live ladder for the first season of Midnight. On your screen right now is a PvP tier list for solo PvP content that I constructed as a prediction to those changes. So in today's video, we're going to be looking at how accurate were those predictions. Do note that I was pretty heavy-handed with some of these predictions because I was very concerned with where the specializations would land and wanted to give you guys as much of a warning on those potential concerns. But now we've had a week of play, and I think I've got a really good idea of where the specializations actually have landed as a result, and if you should be as concerned about the positioning of some of them on this list right here as a prediction or not, and it ended up being totally fine in that case. And if you want to make sure that you're staying up to date with news related to World of Warcraft, educational and entertaining content, then make sure to smash that subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated. So let's start off with this string on S tier. Devourer Demon Hunter absolutely is still clocking it in on the S tier. The specialization just does so much damage. There's 3 viable builds. I think in particular the long duration meta where you're just spamming Devour casts over and over in particular seems to be the one that's the most overpowering at the moment. But Collapsing Star is perfectly viable cheese option as well as the Predator's Wake melee build. So it's probably the only spec in the game that actually has such a diverse range of builds at the same time as being so powerful. I would say its only weakness is really Subtlety Rogue, and maybe potentially some Marksmanship Hunters. So if you don't get those, you kind of run rampant most of the time. Frost Mage, we saw nerfs to Ray of Frost. Doesn't seem like it's really impacted them a lot. Note that their damage was compensated for the 4% overall damage buff, so it wasn't exactly a 20% nerf on Ray. It was much less than that. They're just still very strong. They're really tanky. They still do like the most overall damage of a lot of specializations. You can get maybe some lobbies with like Hunters and DPS Shaman specs that can be difficult compared to like the 3v3 ladder where you can have a dedicated rogue kind of babysitting you throughout the match, which can make it difficult, but I still think it is warranted on being up here in the S tier, most notably due to its defense capabilities, and that's something I talked about in my prediction tier list, so I'm not going to be moving it from this position. Preservation Evoker is one where I think it's completely God mode when it comes to Battleground Blitz. It's just beyond the best performing flag carrier. They're addressing this in the next patch, but for the rest of the season, I think it's still going to remain the case in the top here for Battlegrounds. When it comes to Solo Shuffle, though, I do think it's a lot closer with the other healers. I would actually say that Discipline Priest is a very close second to it. I would honestly recommend Void Weaver Discipline Priest, especially if you're going for like a Gladiator push here towards the end of the season. You pair that up with something like a Devourer Demon Hunter or a Marksmanship Hunter, something with a high-powered like range burst damage, and you're probably going to go pretty far. But Preservation is still just really good, even despite the nerfs that we saw towards some of its kind of cooldown stat boosting allocation abilities that it had. It's still very good. The Nullified Shroud, spammable with Verdant Embrace and just constant throughput, is putting it, I think, in a warranted S tier position. Beast Mastery Hunter, I think I was actually right with the prediction. I think A+ is where a good spot for it. It's just doing really good overall damage, just very easy to play. Affliction as well, I think was accurate with A+. It's doing a lot better with the damage enhancements that have been applied to it. I've personally been playing Hellcaller and getting pretty high, like I think 2,900 on it at the moment. I'm the only one playing Hellcaller, but the whole Soul Harvester build with Drain Soul is still probably better overall for single target pressure. I do think it's really good. Devastation, this is the first one where I'm actually going to move it down a bit, and this is based off the statistical data that I've seen on the ladder. I think especially in Battleground Blitz, it's not that good, but in Solo Shuffle a bit better, but I am actually going to be dropping it. I think that its kind of finishing power is a bit low. Its overall damage is great. It's honestly well designed in terms of their intent for design on classes, where it doesn't really one-shot anybody. It's got good sustain damage, but in the game where there still is like very tanky classes that take no damage or classes that just completely one-shot, you're going to feel a little bit weaker, I think, in that environment. So I'm actually going to be moving this one down. Windwalker Monk still has the best cooldown damage. I don't really see a lot of it, and it's maybe because it can't really keep up with these classes too much. I am somewhat tempted to drop it, but I feel like its cooldown damage is so high that I can't warrant dropping it, even despite its defense and maybe some mobility issues against these kind of upper class specializations. So I think I'm going to leave it where it is at the moment. Arms Warrior, I honestly kind of want to drop it too, even though it's the most popular melee DPS specialization. The main reason that I want to drop it is just survivability. It's a bit RNG. It's really good in Battleground Blitz, though. It's like an integral spec to actually get in a lot of maps. But in Solo Shuffle, I think you can get some bad lobbies. You're kind of squishy. It's not. I don't think it's like I honestly don't think it's that overbearing. Like, am I crazy for wanting to drop Arms Warrior? Is that crazy? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills, but like I think I'm gonna do it. I think I'm gonna drop it to A tier. I think mostly just it did receive some defense nerfs, which I think have been noticeable. Um, and I think it can get some rough lobbies where it gets kited. Ret Paladin, on the other hand, though, it's not strong because of its bonky bonk one shots anymore. It's strong because it's just very durable with a lot of healing on Eternal Flame and rotating through a lot of defensive cooldowns as well. Makes it very effective in a dampening based gameplay like Solo Shuffle, and it's excellent in 1v1 for Battleground Blitz and probably even in teamfight situations there. But it's like it's just across the board like one of the best specializations. I don't find it as overbearing as these guys necessarily in the S tier, so I think it is probably just, I'll hold it down here on the A+. I don't think it's better than Windwalker. Do note that this tier list goes left to right, so I should actually move this. Left to right and top to bottom in terms of strength. Havoc Demon Hunter, we are actually going to be moving and bumping it up. I think it's actually the best of the A+ tier. So Havoc Demon Hunter is just doing tons of damage right now with Eldrazi Reaver. It's a bit more complicated to actually get the effective burst from it, though, than a lot of the other melee specializations from my experience with it. And you can get CC'd a bit while you're kind of like setting up your combo, because a lot of lead in. You have to consume soul and then pick it up with Fell Blade and then get the hunt off to get Eldrazi Reaver and make sure you fully channel the Eye Beam and then Chaos Strike before you Blade Dance. It's a very complicated sequence to actually pull off. When you do, it does a lot of damage. And it's also just really durable, and it's one of the few specs that can actually kind of run down a mage, I've noticed at the moment. So I'm putting it at the top of the melee here. So again, left to right of the A+ tier. Enhancement Shaman. Honestly, this is another one I'm somewhat debating if I want to drop or not. I think Enhancement Shaman can do really well into these casters. It's very, very strong there, but can be a bit shaky into the melee, and there's still a lot of them. Feels so weird to put Arms Warrior here with how popular it is, but I swear it's not that strong, and you can get some rough lobbies. I think Enhance might be the same case. I think I'm going to leave it at the bottom. I think I'm going to shift it towards the bottom of the A+ for now. Subtlety Rogue, this might seem weird, but I'm actually going to leave it on A+. I recently played it. I think it's still got a strong powerhouse. It's good in Battleground Blitz, good across the board, and all PvP content for solo play. Very strong option. Maybe a bit rough and shuffle just because of DR tracking and mages still just being able to blink every stun is like the only thing for it. But I think it's really good mostly just because there's so many Demon Hunters and you still basically counter Demon Hunter. And Demon Hunter I think is going to get more and more popular. So main reason I think that is why Subtlety Rogue should be here in A+. Assassination Rogue still has very good one-shot damage with Kingsbane and Deathmark. Defense is a bit shakier on it. I kind of want to drop it just because of its defense. But there are some cases in the caster lobbies where you just completely carry. It's a bit hit or miss, much like Arms Warrior. I think I do want like more distinction between the tiers, so I'm going to actually be dropping this one. It's still really good. The main reason is defense, as to why I'm dropping it from here to here. A+ for Outlaw Rogue. Is that right or not? I think it's still really good, but it's much like Devastation, where it's just constant damage. It's a bit punchy with Adrenaline Rush. But it's harder to play is the main thing, and so if you're not good at it, it won't feel like A+. It'll feel just terrible. If you are good at it, though, I think it will feel A+. So it's a harder one to rank in that sense. It'd probably be better for me to do like a easy to play, difficult to play tier list if you want to pick based on that. But if you're a top performer, I think it's warranted to be up here. Feral Druid, I think it's still warranted in the A+ tier. It just has a lot of crowd control is the main reason, and Mortal Strike. And it's very slippery, can be tough to catch. And can do decently well into like all of the meta setups and has really good synergies with a lot of the meta setups as well. So I think A+ is fair. Fury Warrior, again, maybe I'm going to drop it, but I feel like Fury Warrior is actually good. The few times that I've seen it, I'm like, Fury Warrior feels better than Arms. It's like insane to me that more people aren't playing it. I might drop it a tier. I just feel like Warrior in general is getting replaced by Demon Hunter, and then Ret has kind of just maintained its spot. I think I might drop it down here with Arms Warrior just to keep Warrior where together you guys can be together here in the A tier. Just feel like you have a little bit more counters at the moment, but they're still very good, really strong. A is definitely not like a bad tier to be on. Resto Druid, this is a weird one because there are some cheesy builds with it. I was predicting it to be on A+, and I think A+ is more than fair. I think it is equivalent here with Void Weaver and even Oracle Disc Priest. I think Mistweaver. I think my healing ranking here honestly was pretty spot on. I think like maybe I'd say Priest is better than Disc is better than Druid. I'd like shift that around, and then Monk and Druid is like almost equal. Again, top to bottom, left to right. Mistweaver Monk is still really good. Lots of build variety. Really good into the Hunters. Maybe not so good into the Mages, but there's so many classes that are good in the mages in the solo brackets that it can kind of make up for that, and they're all really good in battlegrounds for different reasons. Maybe Druid's weak, maybe the weaker one though in battlegrounds, so a little bit of a trade-off there depending on what content you want to do. Arcane Mage, I put it up here onto A tier. I think it's still fair. It does really good damage at the moment. Can be a bit annoying to do with BM Hunter from personal experience, but it has really good damage at the moment. Fire Mage, I kind of honestly want to drop a bit. I don't think it's that insane. Its overall damage is very low. It's completely dependent on landing a Combustion Meteor, and if the other team knows how to deal with that, you just get kind of completely countered. So I'm kind of taking a gamble here, dropping it down a tier for right now. Shadow Priest, A tier is probably fair. It just doesn't have the edge, much like Devastation doesn't have the edge. Arcane has the edge, but it's a little bit harder to actually set it out, a little bit more janky and time consuming and can be disrupted more easily. I'd say Shadow is better than Arcane. Maybe Shadow is better than Dev. It's pretty close. Elemental Shaman, I would say, is probably the best of this tier, so I'm jumping it up to the top of the A tier, left to right. Just really good overall damage, but kind of lacks a bit of finishing power. Maybe it's worthy of A+, though. I could see a world where it's worthy of A+. It's much like Warrior. It's the opposite, where it has melee lobby issues. I could see it being warranted of being A+ at the moment, so I might bump it. I think I'm going to bump it. But I think it's probably the lowest of the A+ tier for right now. But I just got into rank 1 range on it, but its cutoff is a lot lower than a lot of others. It's harder to pull off. It just depends on the lobbies that you get. Sometimes I'm farming, other times I'm just getting farmed. Bitter hit or miss, but I think it is warranted to be A+. And then we talked about Warriors and Assassination. Survival Hunter, this is one that might come as a bit of a surprise, but I'm actually bumping this up very close with Havoc Demon Hunter and A+. It has a crazy one-shot. I think it's stronger than Marksman actually now. So I'm bumping Survival. I was a little bit hesitant to move it too far with only a 3% damage increase, but it's doing remarkably well. Frost DK, I think, is still warranted on A tier. Just very predictable, kind of squishy, I think, is also another drawback to it. So leaving it kind of low on the lower end of the A tier here. All these guys are just a bit, maybe Fearware not so much squishy, at least against casters, but I think defense here relative to these guys is the main reason for it. Restoration Shaman, I think A tier is right, but Holy Priest is almost certainly dropping a lot. Restoration Shaman, I didn't really notice the Farseer buffs too much. I think it's just kind of okay. It can do well into casters. You just have to hard cast a lot, which is the main weakness to a lot of other healers. But it's just like a well-designed heal. It's like weird. It's like I wish every healer was just more like a shaman. But it's just kind of like fair. It doesn't really have a lot of damage is another issue, whereas all these guys can contribute quite a significant amount of damage. I'd say is another reason it's lagging behind to the others. So, but I think it's still deserving of being on A. I think Holy Paladin is maybe slightly or just about equal to it. Boomkin, I'm actually going to be bumping up. I don't think I'm bumping it up to A+, but I could see it being the best of the A tier. I was playing Elune's Chosen with it initially. It was terrible. I'm not going to do that ever again. But Keeper of the Grove, I started getting my Grove back, and it was doing some decent damage. Felt more or less the same as it has for the last 2 expansions, though. So if you're bored of that playstyle, it's basically the same playstyle. But I think its viability is definitely warranted of being a bit higher than B tier. Destruction Warlock is another one I'm debating moving up a tier. It has really good damage, multiple schools of magic, which is nice. Defense to melee is a bit shaky, is the only thing, but it's very similar to these guys. So I feel like it is warranted to probably bump this guy up here. I think it's probably somewhere in here with Shadow and Arcane on A tier. I don't think it's as bad as Og. So I think Og, honestly, I kind of want to drop even lower. Not gonna lie, like it's completely hit or miss. I really hate Ebonmite in PvP. I think the way that it's designed in PvE is probably cool because it's like you're fighting to keep it alive at this last second. But in PvP, when you get CC'd for even a millisecond and you lose your entire mechanic, it just feels terrible. Damage is okay. Like the 8% damage buff definitely put it in a good spot if you're actually able to maintain your Ebonmite. But it's just not that great otherwise. So I would like to see them honestly do something with like Ebonmite retention in PvP, so it's a bit easier to actually keep it going. I think I'm gonna leave it here on B tier, but I do actually want to drop it. Unholy DK I had rated as like the lowest melee DPS moving into this. Do I agree with that now after the fact? Maybe not necessarily this bad. It's not this bad. I think I could at best be moving it up a tier to A. I think along with Frost. I would personally probably play Frost at the moment with the current meta pacing. I do think it's still the worst melee. So it's like did it even move, right? Like it's still in the last place position where it is here, whether it's on B or A. But I think it is a bit more competitive. But then compared to what? I think it's Unholy DK really the worst melee at the moment. Let me know if you agree in the comments, but I'm somewhat leaning into it. But melee balance is probably the hardest to like lock in on what is the worst in that regard. Holy Paladin, I think B is probably fair for it. It's very cooldown dependent at the moment from my experience playing it. Damage is like okay, like a little small amount of burst damage. Been playing Herald mostly. I don't think it's as good in Battlegrounds because you can't use most of your defensives on flag carriers or objectives like every other healer pretty much can, and most of their cooldowns are basically the equivalent of an ice block, and they can use it, but you can't use a blessing of protection. I think like the restrictions on what abilities can and can't be used holding an objective in a BG honestly needs like a run through and maybe like a second a second opinion on like what abilities should and shouldn't be able to be used while carrying the flag. Like you should be able to Emerald Communion, you can't bubble, but they're basically the same in terms of strength, that type of deal. When it comes to tanks, I've been playing some Prop Pally. Prop Pally is really high, I think Guardian's probably still very high. Vengeance is probably the worst, I would say, and like these guys are probably pretty close, so like moving these left to right, but they're all, like maybe I would do that. If anything, to try and like just separate them a bit here, because I think the damage is a bit better on these guys, or they have some more CC that is kind of pushing them over the edge when it comes to Battleground Blitz in that sense. So when it comes to Arena, they're all just kind of janky. Marksmanship Hunter, this was the biggest hot take that I had. Anytime they've touched double tap in the past, it's usually completely obliterated the spec. It didn't quite this time. I do think it is a lot weaker though. It's like only really good into mages. I'm thinking that like A tier is still, I think survival is better than it, BM is better than it. So like maybe the best of A tier. At the moment, it's not like the end of the world calamity, but I wanted to give you guys a fair warning with that prediction that when I made this tier list, maybe just play an alt or just in case. But now after the dust is settled, I don't think it was as bad of a result for it as initially expected. Buffs to Demonology were nice. They're really nice when they were bugged, and Infernal Bolt was hitting for 200k. You were like maybe an A+ tier spec, but they fixed that bug pretty quick. And I just don't think you're that good. I still think you're probably C tier, even though you have really good CC and Imp Dispel. Tons of utility. It's just, I still don't think it has enough damage. I think it's just C tier is still the right position. Maybe you shouldn't have that much more damage. I think I need a little bit more, but I think you're still the worst ranged. And I think it's probably warranted of being on C or maybe B at best. But I think like keeping these guys down here, I think these are the worst options of all of them. And I didn't really talk about Holy Priest when I just dropped it down like 2 ranks. But when I was playing Holy Priest, main issue is that you do well until dampening stacks high, and then your entire kit is healing based. So every other healer is damage reduction and you just lose. That's one thing. It's hard to keep up with overall damage. We pretty much only have a damage of Chastise and Holy Fire, and no other like good sustained way of keeping damage going. So Smite's not really viable as far as damage output relative to a lot of other healers, and not having any damage reduction, and not having any mana management tools either, aside from the Angel granting you like free spell casting. A lot of other healers have some type of mana management tool. It feels like their mana goes a bit further. Maybe it's just because you don't have the damage reduction cooldown, so you have to spam flash more as dampening gets higher. I feel like in Battlegrounds it's better to be a disc. You're just adding more value overall. The cooldowns are a bit stronger on flag carriers and things like that, and objective players. So for me, I think Holy Priest, even despite the buffs, which were significant to its throughput is competitive with other healers. But I've noticed that now that it's competitive, when you get into the late stage of the game, you run into mana issues, and then you run into recovery issues because you don't have any cooldowns based around damage reduction. So I do think Holy Priest is warranted of being a bit lower here. So a couple of hot takes on this one. I think the big shift really is like Affliction coming up, and Demon Hunter and Survival Hunter coming up a lot. And then maybe this hot take of putting Warrior down here or Marksman down here, but I kind of think it is the case at the moment. So these are the vibes that I'm getting right now for 1 week of playthroughs and observations with the final season of Midnight here. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. I hope you guys enjoyed the update, and I will see you in the next one.